Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting edition of Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black America. And I'm your host, Ronald Bethea, and you know if you join us on a regular basis, the slogan. Slogan for this show: if there's power in numbers, then the Positive Change Purchasing Cooperative captures that power for your financial benefit. The Positive Change Purchasing Cooperative serves as an economic blueprint for renewable energy companies, both for renewable energy companies, both large and small, along with increasing market share for African and African American owned renewable energy companies to address the high energy costs at our historically Black colleges and universities, to utilize Black owned farmlands and HBCU campuses to develop capacity and initiatives for renewable energy projects to bring down the and underemployment of young African American men and women locally, nationally, and throughout the diaspora. The Positive Change Purchase Cooperative also has been working through our 501c3 organization, the Black Sports Legends Foundation, which you see the image of our 501c3 uh, organization, which has bootstrapped and funded this project throughout the 10-year time of the platform that we're on now, the Positive Change Online Digital Radio TV Television Network. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're expecting to have a guest today on our platform here on Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black America. And we're waiting for Mr. Henderson that will be joining us. And we're going to be talking about an event that took place here uh, in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, on yesterday uh, concerning a delegation from four African nations that came here to meet looking for assistance with energy to solve energy issues in their respective uh, regions and prospective countries. Give me for that. And this delegation was composed of Benin, Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, and Senegal. They were visited by and it was hosted by the U.S. Trade and Development Agency, USTA, and they focus on integrating U.S. made artificial intelligence AI solutions to enhance grid solutions and efficiency in that arena. Now, I have privileged today to have on my I am privileged today to have on my platform a gentleman who is a I would like to I refer to him as a friend and a business associate that is one of the leading African Americans in the financing arena as it relates to renewable energy financing projects on the continent of Africa. And we'll be having this conversation uh, with Mr. Eric Henderson uh, and his firm. Mr. Henderson has several partnerships and operations, uh, and his firm is, in fact, entitled EXIDG, International Development Organization, serving the U.S. government, including Millennium Challenge corporations and U.S. trade development as well as the World Bank, the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs, and DFAT, and other international donors. The mission of their group, IDG's mission, is to catalyze resilience economic growth, to avert poverty and global uh, to aggregate from preventing poverty globally through partnering with public and private stakeholders to deliver quality technical assistance and the capacity of strengthening uh, other areas of expertise include financial management, private sector development, market systems, international trade policies, and facilitation, monitoring, evaluation, learning, cost benefit analysis, financial sector, food security, agricultural, institutional support contracts. IDG has worked for USGA and other international donors for over 36 years and have more than 54 projects in over 90 countries. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is who we are blessed to have joining us this morning. He'll be joining us very, very shortly here. Let me hit the uh, button so I can bring this gentleman in to the our forefront. I'm admitting him right now. Good morning, Eric. Good morning. Can you hear me? Good morning, Eric.
Yeah, I responded. Can you? I can hear you. You can hear me,
Oh,
right?
yeah, I can hear you now. I can hear you. Sounds like you're on a speakerphone, but thank you for taking time from your very, very busy schedule to join us today because I was planning on having another subject matter today, but after I saw the information that broke concerning the very important meeting of the delegation that had just come in from the continent and of Africa, uh, with the people coming in from Benin, I think Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, and Nigeria. I want to. I didn't know anyone else I could reach out to who might have attended that event. And luckily, when I called you on yesterday, you said you had just left that event about 30 minutes ago. So I was very excited to hear that. And Eric, would you? I've done a brief overview, but you've done so much outstanding work in your career. I didn't know really where to start uh, with that. So I wanted our listening audience to understand the gravity of individuals such as you, and could you provide a little bit about your how you grew up in your background and your parents? And because as I've talked to you over the years, I've understood the passion and the motivation that your mother and father instilled in you, and it's a great deal of pride, and you do have done such an outstanding job being a long distance runner. And what I mean by that is you go back to the Clinton administration, and the you were at that time. I think you were working in the Department of Commerce with one of our giants who we lost, unfortunately. But you have been such a stellar in putting together various initiatives and financing projects for the continent of Africa that very, very few African Americans in this country have any idea of the gravity of Eric Henderson. So could you share that a little information on your background and what you've done?
Absolutely. Well, thank you, first of all, Ron, for having me. Bear with me just one moment, doing a little family duty and dropping some family off at a doctor's appointment. So if you indulge me just a moment,
Well, I can understand
just
that.
just Bear with me just a moment.
Yeah,
That's
look
the name
like
I'm
you
going to
have
say.
look like you have
You
your
know, you
seat.
know the suite number? Okay, gotcha. Um, yeah. So thank you, Ron, for having me. Are you good, man? Okay, I'll be stationary in about 15 seconds. Thank you so much, Ron, for having me. So yeah, it is interesting. I mean, the one of the things that as I get older and as I kind of deal with the passing of both my father and mother in the last 15 months, I'm
Oh man, I'm
coming to.
sorry to hear that.
Oh no, I appreciate that. I'm coming to a greater appreciation of the amazing family background that I have. My grandmother on one side was Ruby Dee's best friend and introduced her to Ozzy.
Oh, that's
My
amazing.
and she was a school teacher and principal, and my grandfather, her husband, my grandfather was one of the railroad porters and used to take my father and his siblings all over the United States on the train because CSX was headquartered in the South Georgia town of Waycross, Georgia. So if you were a black man on the railroad, you were doing really well in life. But he was also an educator, school principal, college professor, and serial entrepreneur. Um, and he produced my favorite auntie, who is to this day still a lawyer with Georgia Legal Services, but she was with the Peace Corps in Africa in the 60s and 70s. So I never knew impact somebody could have on your life just by example. My other grandmother was the founder of the black newspaper, the Dallas Post Tribune in Dallas, and was recognized as a living black Texas legend by Governor Bush, who became President Bush. And my grandfather was the senior most black postal worker in the Dallas area. Um, they couldn't call you a postmaster general because you're a Negro, but he was very accomplished and very well regarded. So, and he ended up being one of the early investors, even though he was a black man, in some of the Bush family oil companies. So I was bounced on some really, really influential knees. And that framed my upbringing so that when I went from working for Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson to President Clinton and eventually Secretary Brown, uh, I was told I would focus on Africa, which is funny because being from Texas, I speak fluent Spanish. I was focused on Latin America and the Caribbean, and the secretary said, "You're going to focus on Africa." And I laughed. Like, I ain't focused on no Africa. And nearly 35 years later, I have been all over the continent. I've financed some of the most iconic deals imaginable. I've done trade deals. I oversaw at one point all of the commercial sections of every U.S. embassy in Africa, from Angola to Zambia, and I've traveled in and out of these countries. I have been blessed to have been the first Black partner at Interlink Capital Strategies, and we financed a couple of $1 billion in projects in Nigeria. I'm currently the first Black partner at Synergy Consulting, where we financed a $5 billion hydro project in Mozambique recently. But outside of that, I started XCBG in March of 2005 to help US companies in particular expand to the continent because of my experience. And so it is, as a black man, when we were trying to get AGOA passed, the African Growth and Opportunity Act, people thought we were crazy, but President Bush signed it and renewed it 3 times. And then President Obama renewed it, and then even President Trump renewed it.
Oh, that
And,
that is
and
correct.
and interestingly enough, people have realized that outside of just raping it for resources and people, human capital, we need Africa. We need African ingenuity. We need African participation. Africa has shown itself loyal to the United States, though we haven't shown ourselves loyal to her. And I think our friends in Iran and Iraq and Saudi and Dubai and France, Spain, Germany, and certainly Russia, and even the UK have shown themselves up and down in terms of their loyalties. But Africa has never wavered in its loyalty to us, but we haven't shown the reciprocal loyalty to it that we should have. But that notwithstanding, I put together the Affordable Housing Initiative for Africa at what was called OPIC and is now called the U.S. Development Finance Corporation. By way of education, I started at Morehouse. I finished my bachelor's at the University of North Texas in international relations and political science with a minor in Spanish. I went on to get a graduate degree at American University. Then I've got certificates in international business and international negotiation from the Peace and Conflict Institute and from the Foreign Service Institute. So I won't bore you with any more about that, but I've done business in about 154 countries. I was appointed by President Bush as the first Black commercial attaché for the U.S. at the World Bank, where my job was to help U.S. companies generally to win some of that $50 billion worth of work per annum. But my passion is helping Black American companies and African companies win that work around the world, and especially in the continent. So I guess I'll leave it there for now.
Well, I reached out for Michael Fabu, who is a Nigerian uh, brother who has a company here in Germantown, Maryland. He has perfected something called mobile carbon capture. He has
Mhm.
a patent on that. And uh, uh, Malcolm is a brilliant, brilliant mind. He's of Nigerian descent, and he has come up with a patent which he has already. It's not pending. He already has the patent where they have developed a filter process, and they have a fabricated box which will fit on any whether it be foreign or domestic made automobile, and it attaches to the muffler, and it has an extension that goes up the tailpipe that captures about 98% of the carbon and emissions escaping from a combustion engine. Now, his business model has been one where he's also developed that for 18-wheeler vehicles. And I reached out to him once I found out that I was going to have you today to see if I could get him on with you, but I'm going to set up a call this week for you and him. And he has, in fact, been trying to raise around 5 mil to do this. And I have been a sort of pit bullish about making sure that we're able to scale his carbon capture model, because what he has done, he has set this up where will be entering in contractual arrangements, and he's still working on that portion of his business model with an outlet such as a Jiffy Lube where people can go and have the unit attached. And when that filter becomes saturated with carbon, they can take it back to that Jiffy Lube or AutoZone and have the filter changed. And then the same process that they use to uh, capture the when they did the freon changes on air conditioning, how they draw it and capture it in a airtight uh, uh, container. That carbon, they go back and collect that carbon, and then they purify it, and he sells that to the food industry, perfume industry, and numerous other applications for carbon capture. So he's looking for financing for that. And I have not forgotten Dr. Nima with his mobile power grid information, and I will be setting that call up also for you in the very, very near future, because it's been moving parts. But on yesterday, Eric, you had the privilege of attending the seminar that was being held here in Washington D.C., and that was the U.S. I think what is it, SDA STD agency.
USTDA,
Yeah,
U.S. Trade
USTDA,
Development Agency.
U.S. Trade Development. Now, you were at that event on yesterday. Could you sort of share with our listening audience from your perspective and overview some of the exciting innovations you saw and some of the things that you would could talk about to educate our community on this?
Absolutely. Well, well, first off, it was a long time coming, given what we've been through with the Trump administration and shutdowns and whatnot. USTDA was it was still being funded. It was still quietly percolating along, but they weren't nearly as active with their public events as they had been in previous years and decades. The event was absolutely outstanding. The presentations were precise, they were targeted, they were short, they were clear, and they laid out both near-term procurement opportunities for U.S. exporters, whether it's products or services. They laid out the vision and overall strategy and structure of the energy uh, uh, activities and um, project implementation that they're looking to achieve. The presenters were phenomenal. The level of sophistication, not only of the presenters in terms of education, experience, and professionalism, but the work that ECOWAS is doing, the work that the Nigerian government and um, EEERE and the other organizations that presented, they were sophisticated, they were detailed, they were forward looking, they were practical and pragmatic. It was one of the single best presentations. It was specific and not generic, like a lot of times African presentations can be. They were very clear in what their objectives and desires are, their goals, their projections, and the specific technology opportunities, export opportunities that could be available, the resources they have uh, available, whether it's grants or loans or private equity investments or organizational support, guarantees, um, project profiles, and the wish list of investment or funding or projects to be delivered. They had creative and innovative approaches to power purchase agreements and offtakes, concession agreements, etc. So I attended it. It was absolutely excellent. And they started on time and they ended 5 minutes early, which is um, people were very serious minded in terms of what they were uh, trying to achieve. There is a reception uh, in New York at 6 p.m. So that if for any of your members, if you scroll down in the invitation, you'll see the New York reception for Thursday at 6 p.m. I can't remember the location, but I would recommend any of your members to try to go to that reception and network. It would be well worth it to go from wherever they're from, DC, Philly, Mississippi, wherever they might be from, to try to attend that because getting that kind of direct access and FaceTime uh, would be critical for anybody that's interested and committed to doing business on the continent. The subject matter was specifically energy, whether it was traditional fossil fuel like coal or gas or LNG or carbon sequestration, pardon me, green hydrogen, fuel cells, and then obviously renewables to include solar hybrid, battery backup, and storage. So it was a really excellent presentation. And Josh Egba, the head of Africa at USTDA, who lives in Lagos, came. He was the moderator. And the young lady who's now the head of energy for Africa at USTDA was there. Her name is escaping me. I apologize. I'll try to see if I can find her information. But yeah, it was excellent. You would have. I'm sorry that the notice didn't get out to you, Ron, because it would have been a great event for you to attend, and it was free.
Well, Eric, in the line of work that I do, I'm often pulled in a lot of directions.
Sure.
I have been doing a great deal of research around the expansion of the investment Inflation Reduction Act as we looked at President Biden and Harris administration. They brought in $133 billion, which has been already invested in the U.S. The
Mm.
majority of that went into red states. Environment E2, which has it tracks the environmental spending for the Inflation Reduction Act, uh, basically laid out the fact that out of $133 billion, which was invested by 77 foreign corporations to build manufacturing facilities in the US, that only 20 billion went into blue states. The rest of that money went into red states. So what I've looked at the state of Georgia, which has Q-Cell, which is the largest solar manufacturing facility in the North American hemisphere. They also have a company called Solar Cycle, which is the largest uh, solar recycling uh, company of uh, solar panels, because we know that there is a about a 25-year uh, date on panels when they are manufactured. Some of them last longer, some of them last, but we cannot afford to put these many uh, panels in landfills in the U.S. So we have to go and look at the recycling business. I've also been looking at how that ties into our HBCUs through a group called the HBCU Collaboration Group, which are basic CDC offices that did not have a plan of action. And Dr. Gary Harris, who was a very, very, very dear friend of mine and my wife's former boss, who passed several years ago. He headed the school. He was the dean of the School of Engineering at Howard University. And kudos to Howard University, because Howard University has built a brand new multi-million-dollar state-of-the-art school of sustainability that is standing at Michigan and North Capitol Street. And I know that I'm speaking with a gentleman that should be a chartered and tenured professor at teaching the financing for international renewable and energy projects in Mr. Eric Henderson. If I can sort of put that out in the airways, but they have an organization. I'm familiar with Larry Saleh, who's chairman of the board of directors. So I've been trying to get some synergy around various companies, African American companies. I have a gentleman by the name of Mr. Michael Henry, who was in the solar industry for a number of years, and he's basically shut down because of the uh, revision of the investment tax credits, which have had a tremendous impact on the green economy and renewable energy industry here in the US. So it is only making sense now for our US African and African American companies that weren't getting their fair share of opportunity. Uh, Eric, I know I know you're struggling like I am, brother, but your eyes are closing on me. So I just,
There's a glare where I'm sitting. I'm good.
okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure. But anyway, I have been working with Mr. Michael Henry. He has a company uh, called Grid Masters Energy, and he has a gentleman who used to be the head of Dolpher by the name of Dwayne. The gentleman is an engineer in trade, but he is partnered with Mr. Henry, he's invented what they call paralysis machine, which
Mm.
takes all of the energy out of the process in burning agricultural waste. And Mr. Michael Henry is partnered with John Boyd with the National Association of Black Farmers, and Lord knows our farmers need as much help as they can. We have approximately 190 farmers right now that are going into foreclosure, and we're talking about losing another 100,000 acres of farmland, which we cannot afford that. So this particular
The
machine,
we is the black farmers,
yeah,
or
yeah,
okay.
the black farmers, because
Why would they lose Why would they lose that acreage?
the reason why they can't lose that acreage because the monies that they were supposed to get from the settlement, the $5 billion, they never got that. So being that they didn't get that, and with the cost of the peat moss fertilizer going up, and many of them having to put that down at this time of year, me being from South Carolina, growing up as a country boy, I understand the urgency and window that they're in. And many of these farmers are trying to pay off last year's debt and on farm debt. So they need to raise about $50 million. This particular machine that Mr. Michael Henry has, they have it in about 50 uh, units that have already been put into the marketplace. Through their process, they're able to generate, I think, about with that machine about 4 point something what is it, megawatts. It's a very powerful machine, and
Mhm.
so that they can generate that energy, and by burning agricultural waste products, whether it's cow or animal feces or wood chips or various things that they can utilize, they convert that into these biodiesel fuel, which can be monetized, and they can sell that. And these are some of the type of initiatives that I want to try to make sure that I can put these people in front of you, because they are trying to raise the actual, it's like an equipment loan, but he has about 15 orders, and these machines run about 1.5 million a piece, and he's trying to help get financing for farmers who are interested in buying these machines and putting them into their farming operations here in the US. But the same thing could be applicable to a farmer on the
Yeah,
continent.
to Bermuda, to Bahamas,
Yes,
to Belize, Guyana,
yeah,
Barbados, Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, Zambia, Namibia. Absolutely.
no question. So this is I'm very, very excited about me being able to get these companies, and I have built a working relationship with them. I've had them on various uh, formats. Uh, I had Antoine Thompson with the Greater Washington Clean Cities Collaboration Group. He hosted
Hmm.
a webinar, and he had them on, and we did an interview. And I've set up a number of other radio formats other than being on this platform. He is solar now in the future with his economic impact on Black America. Well, with that being said, um, out of all of the initiatives that you see right now, I think looking at the initiative that Dr. Nima has with the mobile power grid, I think I sent you some information on that, didn't I? But if
I
not,
don't think so.
okay, well it will be in your email box as soon as we finish with the show today.
Okay.
Uh, uh, and what he's looking for in terms of a manufacturing partner. They're not interested in building the plant. They're interested in building the plant and basically licensing the technology, and they're looking to build that plant and for those uh, countries and those communities where these plants will be built will be run by those communities and the professionals from those communities. So Dr. Nima has a very, very two exciting projects. It's the mobile power grid, because you don't need power lines to transmit the electricity. And that is what is so exciting about what he's doing. And also, he has another partnership with a company called M24, where they have invented a battery for electric vehicles that will fit into, it's taking the lithium iron out of the process, and which causes the fires for electric vehicles. And you can get 1,000 miles charge off of one quick charge for any EV. I'm very excited about that, and it is a game changer for the EV charging industry. So those are the initiatives he's working with. As I said, we have Michael Flabu. Brother Flabu has the mobile carbon capture. He's developed that for the trucking industry as well as the automobile industry. And then we have Mr. Michael Henry, who has the paralysis furnace. And I'm going to get all this information to you today with the videos and give you an opportunity to go through that. And you can sort of give me a timeline, and I will be setting up those meetings for you with them, because they need to be presenting this information to you personally. But with that being said, uh, Eric, you've been at this for decades now, and I'm looking at the great demand that we are being hit with because of the rapid deployment of data centers here in the United States. I have been looking at the data from the PJM region. For my listening audience, the PJM is a regulatory body that controls 13 states and the District of Columbia. They have 1,000 members who vote. They set the price of energy, cost of energy, transfer cost of energy. They set the clearinghouse and the annual daily wholesale auction of energy, which takes place usually in June or July of every year. But here in the PJM, we have 1,575 data centers. Virginia leads the U.S. with 668 data centers. Northern Virginia is the hub where 70% of all internet calls and things are routed through Northern Virginia. And what I've been saying to people for years, data centers are not new. Data centers was created out of a need for more space in government operational buildings, and they didn't have it. So someone came up with the idea, why don't we put all of the data in one place and we can control it? But the issue about data centers is they take so much energy. Now, based on the data that I've been able to get from the PJM, we're talking about one data center, not a large data center. So if we took a consideration of the average size of a data center, which breaks down the uh, 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 daily use, when you look at the load in the morning and the evening, of course, is higher because you have people in their homes. And when people go to work during the course of the day, they turn their utilities off. So the load cost goes down. But what is important about this thing is that one data center can use energy to power between 15 to 50,000 homes in one day, depending on the load and time of the days, which I know you understand it, but I'm trying to make this plain for my listening audience. It is imperative that people understand that we don't have enough infrastructure. with needing almost $1 trillion in upgrades to the U.S. grid in America to power these data centers. So there has to be new infrastructure lines and power grids, and that infrastructure cost is being passed through to us. Matter of fact, the U.S. Office of the People's Counsel here in the state of Maryland filed suit concerning Maryland ratepayers being hit with $8 million in fee costs associated with upgrades. And some this stuff goes up into the billions of dollars. So when we're talking about the PJM region, we're talking about 67 million customers. And when you look at your gas, water, and electric bill, because the reason why it affects your electric bills is because the amount of water. Now, one other thing that I wanted to mention to you, Eric, I also have a gentleman by the name of Rex who has a company called Smart Energy Solutions, and I have his agreement here, and he has something called energy optimization. It's called energy optimizers, where they clean the energy through a filter system. He is looking to expand his marketing approach has been he has the already put this device in approximately 87,000 McDonald's across the country. He has 120 different franchises that have put these energy optimizers in their hotels, motels. A lot of investors in the Airbnb space have purchased these energy optimizers. For a home it runs about 2,500, but they guarantee 30 to 40% energy reduction. Now, the reason why it was so appealing to me is because I understand everybody can't afford $30,000 to put a PV system on their roof. And when you're talking about people being hit right now at this time with these rate hikes and these increases because of the pass-throughs from the demand for more energy, as well as the fact we're looking at a situation where the gas and oil industry, with the closing of the Straits of Hormuz as it relates to U.S. and U.S. ally interests, is very is throwing the price of oil and gas to be very, very volatile at this time. And all we got to do is ride by the nearest gas station and look up at the prices, and we can see that. But of course, you don't have to worry about that because you're driving the EV. But if you got, but if you got to go buy a gas tank, it's like every time you go by a gas station, the gas pump taps your car on the rear end and say, "Hey, you forgot something. You're on empty." We are in a serious situation as relates to where we're going to get the energy reserves to maintain the billions of dollars that are being spent in this war that I think we could have done without. And I'll leave it at that. So with that being said, Eric, the energy optimizer piece, I will also be getting you that information. I will be sending you that information because we need to introduce this technology to the African nations because they need to have access to this technology. I think it's a game changer. I'm very, very excited about it. So as you can hear, I've been very, very busy working here trying to get it done. Now, I don't keep people more than 30 minutes, Eric. You've already done 38 minutes with me. Matter of fact, you've done 39 minutes with me. So you've been very, very, very generous with your time today. I saw that you were in your car and you had the commander and chief with you. I think you
Yeah,
had
yeah.
the
I
CEO,
had the chairman's
CEO.
chairman.
Yeah, the
I had the
chairman's chairman today with you. So I haven't had an opportunity to meet your lovely wife and your grandmother, but I understand, brother. I spend quite a bit of time doing the same thing, taking my wife to doctor's appointments. So I understand. But I want to thank you, Eric, for taking time from your busy, very busy schedule. Now, I want you to leave with our listening audience some caveats of wisdom, which you have plenty of that, as well as some suggestions as to what would you recommend for a young person that would be in college or universities and they're interested in getting into the field that you're in, looking at financing for around the energy industry, because it's the same phenomena in the arena that you play in as you would have as you begin to look at money managers and HR funds for the unions. When we begin to look on Wall Street, we see very few of our people who look like us that are in that game. So where would a young person that working on an MBA at a Morgan or a Howard or a Bowie or a Coppin, who may have not been exposed to uh, Eric Henderson's of this world, how should they go about? And has any of these colleges and universities asked you to come do any speaking at their schools of business? Because to me, it's unconscionable for us to live in a capitalistic society and energy controls everything, and we not look at the business in of financing energy. Things just don't happen out of osmosis.
So yes, the first thing that I recommend, I mean, the one of the best things to learn about what can be done is to see what has been done.
I
I,
agree.
I would I would recommend that young black interested international business people, international business students, or students interested in international business and finance. I just sent you, Ron, a list of websites to include XM, DFC, IFC, and the U.S. Um, Department of Commerce website. One is EXIM, the other is DFC, the other is IFC, and the other is trade.gov. In the case of XM, DFC, and IFC, I would recommend any young person interested in energy finance or any kind of finance or international business to look at the press releases for the last 20 years, whatever they can get their hands on from the websites that I just shared, because it'll start to give you an understanding of what has been done, what can be done, and a vision for what someone else might do. I think that most people gravitate toward things they have information about. So people think, oh, I'm going to go to Wall Street and do stocks and bonds. Well, that's all lovely to get involved in legalized gambling, but there are so many things around that: hedge funds, private equity funds. How do you how do you meet people that would invest in those things, people that would loan to those projects, uh, getting the access to that information and understanding. The first $1 billion company that I ever landed as a client, I read a press release, I Googled the CEO, I found his cell phone number, and I cold called him. And we ended up building $3 billion worth of solar projects in Africa. But I was relentless. I cold called him and I showed up at his office. Now, it's not as easy to do that as it once was, but I believe that's the kind of attitude that one needs to have to achieve relentless pursuit of information, relentless pursuit of contacts, and follow up and follow through. Those things are transcendent, not because I've done them. I have an amazing wife who is a doctor, and I cold called Kaiser Permanente to get her an interview for the job she's now had for 20 years.
Well, Eric, I just have one other thing, and I've got to put it out here because it's a game changer. The case of House versus the NCAA is a lawsuit that was just settled for NIL, name, images, and likeness. Now it is legal for colleges and universities to pay student athletes. The tremendous amount of money that is going to have to be paid out by the NCAA over the next 6 years in this lawsuit is over $200 million. They also must do revenue sharing with these student athletes. Now, we know that football and basketball are revenue generating sports, but we also know that we have other sports that are very, very lucrative when we begin to look at international football, soccer, when we begin to look at tennis, when we begin to look at golf. These are very, very lucrative sporting fields. My issue is getting some of our student athletes, for example, a young man who played at Tulane University as a quarterback 2 years ago was uh, transferred into Duke University. And we also know that Duke is known for their basketball prowess and their legendary coaches there. And Duke University paid this young man $12 million for one season. He's a senior. He only this year. They only got him for 2 years. That's a tremendous amount of money, Eric. It's a game-changing piece. Now, for our smaller colleges and universities that are what they call major minor conferences, we have 27 of those conferences. Those conferences are the CAA conference, such as University of Delaware, Richmond, James Madison, the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference with Howard University, Morgan, the Southwestern Athletic Conference with Grambling, Southern, those universities. They have no NIL money. And the reason why they have no NIL money is because we don't have billionaires who are in the energy industry. Because when you begin to look at who is backstopping the raising of the advertising dollars for the major four super conferences, which the NCAA presidents have decided they're going to cut them 27 mid majors budgets by 20% over the next 20 years. That means each one of those conferences is going to lose $6 million, which is paid directly to the conference, and they do what they call a revenue sharing within the conferences. The SWAC and the MEAC cannot afford that. So with these kids using Deion Sanders as the
Hello?
post, yeah, as the poster child for this situation, we have an urgent need for our universities to go behind the meter, take that money that they're spending in utility costs to reinvest in NIL and physical plant upgrades for the universities, because they are also being squeezed by the urgent demand for new energy for these data centers. So, with that being said, Eric, I wanted to sort of put that on the table and see what you think about this opportunity that has emerged completely out of the sport field of sports and entertainment. But when you have this kind of money being generated by young kids coming out of high school, I think that they need to be educated around what you do and the type of investment in renewable energy and energy projects, because everything starts with it and everything ends with it. And it's the most sound investment that someone can invest in.
You think so? Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
let me put it like this. After salaries on any college or university, regardless of the ethnicity, energy is the number two fixed cost that drives up the price of tuition. Nothing else. Energy. I don't have to tell you, if you cut the lights off and the heat off in the winter, you ain't got to worry about people staying in that dormitory because they ain't going to be there. We cannot afford to lose out on the billions of dollars that the Biden-Harris administration put into the Investment Reduction Act. And all of this ain't over with yet, even though there has been revisions to rescind tax credits. There is still a tremendous amount of opportunity out here for our young people, and we need to get them into these fields. So, with that being said, brother, I want to thank you for taking time from your very, very busy schedule. And if you have anything else you'd like to share before I close with you, I'd appreciate it.
As I said, any of the companies that you mentioned, I'm happy to help them. Any of the people that want mentorship or assistance or guidance, I'm happy to help them, and I would love to collaborate with you on in as many ways as possible.
Well, with that being said, Eric, thank you very much for taking time to be on the platform of Solar Now in the future with its economic impact on Black America, because I couldn't think of a better person for me to have reached out to after I saw that this delegation had been here yesterday. I said, well, if nobody else was there, Eric Henderson was at the event.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
All
your
right.
time, buddy. We'll
All
talk
right.
soon.
All right. Bye
Take
bye.
care.
You have a good day. All
You
right.
too.
All right. Bye bye. Okay, Eric. And ladies and gentlemen, that was Eric Henderson. And I'm your host, Ronald Bethay. And as you can see behind me, you see the uh, form advertising uh, a banner, not a banner, but like a platform that I've created for the Black Sports Legends Foundation, which has been the primary way I have funded this program for 10 years now on this platform, the Positive Change Purchasing Cooperative Online Digital Radio TV Broadcast Network. Ladies and gentlemen, we have about 9 more minutes, and I want to take this time to let people know we are 501c3. Then we have our other organization, which have served for the past 5 years as president of the National Association of Blacks in Solar. We had over 13,000 solar installations and design firms before uh, president the present administration, 47th president administration, came into office. Because of the revisions and the canceling of the 30% investment tax credit for rooftop solar, heat pumps, and looking at the attack on the wind industry and other renewable energy industries, specifically the solar industry, which has been the cheapest and fastest growing industry over the last 2 decades. Now, you can go to my website at positivechangepc.com, and you can look at a video on the front page in our video gallery, which will break down and provide you with uh, the video and talking about, and you can hear President Obama speaking concerning that particular video. I'm going to pull it up right now so I can share that information with you here on the platform of Solar Now in the future with its economic impact on Black America. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, it's called the Sunshot Initiative. And this is a video that goes back to Sunshot Identity Initiative, which was launched under President Barack Obama's administration. And it does an excellent job explaining what has taken the industry. What is disturbing, ladies and gentlemen, is the fact that with the clawbacks by Trump's administration, by EPA's executive director, and them trying to do away with diversity, equity, and inclusion, it has a very, very chilling effect on the solar industry. And we had in 2025, half of the solar installation and design firms in the US have gone into chapter 13 or 11, bankruptcy. And we need to be looking at how our African American companies are going to come out of this, because we had less than 50 African American solar installation and design firms doing business out of the 13,000. And they did not get their fair share of opportunities under the Harris and Biden administration. And I keep telling everybody, it's about policy, legislation, and policy. And it takes real dollars to drive policy and legislation in the system that we operate in on a daily basis. So you need to know what your local state delegate's position is. You can also go to our news and events tab, and under our news and events tab, you're going to want to look at the policy watch, which is put out by the Maryland Clean Energy Center, which is located in College Park, Maryland, near the University of Maryland College Park. And they provide a legislative policy watch. And on Friday mornings, they do have meetings where you can participate. Now, these are just a few of the subjects that you'll find under our news and events tab by logging on to positivechangepc.com. That's positivechangepc.com. The green economy in DC is expanding. Who will benefit? This is a downloadable textbook that had playbook that has been developed by Emerald Cities and Mrs. Denise Fairchild, who is a brilliant sister who has built an outstanding organization and sort of passed the reins on to younger folks to run. But she has built an outstanding organization, and they do outstanding work nationally. Then it says, in Iran tensions and dispute, Trump pushes the SAVE Act, racist NASCAR flag calls out, sparks outrage. This is a piece that was done on yesterday on Roland Martin Unfiltered. And I feel strongly that people want to watch that video, because he has an interview with John Boyd, who's head of the National Association of Black Farmers. And you will find out that our farmers are catching a lot of hell. That's why we're working feverishly. A conversation with Eric Henderson on the Energy Summit, which you will be able to listen to this video there, as well as energy leaders from Nigeria and 4 other countries head to the U.S. to address the power sector challenges, which you heard Eric speak about on yesterday. Georgia hasn't had a consumer advocacy for electricity payers for over 18 years. They're talking about an office of the People's Counsel, which is different from the Public Service Commission. Now, Georgia has a Public Service Commission, South Carolina has a Public Service Commission, and North Carolina. But neither one of them have a organization such as the People's Counsel, which will bring litigation and file various briefs with the local Public Service Commission if they are not in agreement with how they see these rates being in these pass-throughs from the utility companies being passed on to residents in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital right now. The Washington Gas is asking for $34 million rate hike in order to pay for DC residents to pay for replacing the gas lines in the city. I think that's hardware. Sounds like me. That's a fixed cost that the gas company needs to be covered. Then we have the Maryland Clean Energy Policy Watch Week 10. With great solar power comes great recycling responsibilities. In solar cycle, we're talking about an industry by the end of this year will generate $461 million in revenue. Every year, 10% of the solar panels installed in the U.S. have to be replaced. These are industries that I think that we need to be pushing our young people to have get researched and get some uh, 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 interest in how do we get them in some of these new technology fields. Chris Stevens explains how HBCUs will be impacted by NIL payouts. That's a much watch if you are a graduate of an HBCU. Save up to 100% with Maryland EV charging incentives. Energy deployment. The Energy Department announces $500 million of strengthening domestic critical mineral processing and manufacturing. This is an RFP that just was published on the 13th, and the deadline for applications is there. 5.2 billion in 36 hours. Did Trump just hand China the world? This is a must watch. If you come and you want to know what's going on in what they call the Middle East, you need to watch this particular forensic analysis around energy and how it is going to play a major role in the volatility of world markets. Financing opportunities for renewable energy projects and equipment. That is a webinar that I recently hosted. Now, the Maryland Clean Energy Policy Watch for week 9. You will also find that day. Press release. The OPC warns that GL spending raises accountability concerns. You want to look at that article. Then you also can find Policy Watch for week 8. Now you'll be able to find CPACE March 26, April newsletter for small businesses, explore job opportunities with the clean energy sector, march with the Maryland Clean Energy and CEA returning buildings decarbonization, and more. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is basically covering everything that you will find in the month of March under our news and events tab. We have come to the close of another exciting edition of Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black America. I'm your host, Ronald Bethea, and you know if you join us on a regular basis that the slogan for this show, if there's power in numbers, then the Positive Change Purchasing Cooperative LLC captures that power for your financial benefit. The Positive Change Purchasing Corporate LLC serves as an economic blueprint for renewable energy companies, both large and small, along with increasing market share for African and African American owned renewable energy companies to address the high energy costs at our historically Black colleges and universities, to utilize Black owned farmlands and HBCU campuses, develop capacity and initiatives for renewable energy projects to bring down the underemployment of young African and African American owned men and women locally, nationally, and throughout the diaspora. Also to educate the African and African American community about the economic impacts of climate change and the need for environmental education through Black Talk Radio platforms such as Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black America. So, ladies and gentlemen, till next week, we don't want you to meet us back here. We want you to beat us back here. And remember that once again, that this show is brought to you by the Positive Change Purchasing Cooperative. This platform, the online digital radio TV network, is brought to you every week by the National Association of Blacks in Solar and the Black Sports Legends HBCU Solar Radio Talk Show Initiative. And if you want to contribute to help us keep this on the air, to improve what we're doing as we are working tirelessly to try to improve this on a weekly basis, please do by logging on to positivechangepc.com. And I don't want you to meet me back here. I want you to beat me back here next week as we close another exciting edition of Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black America. And until next week, we say go in peace.